Alrighty, everybody. It's time for another Q&A. Let's get to it. Were you serious about Wilt Chamberlain benching 500 pounds, or was that sarcasm? I was being dead serious, man. Wilt Chamberlain is 7'2", and after he retired, he got up over 300 pounds and became an enthusiast for working out. The guy even ran a marathon in his 60s. Okay, he was the best volleyball player in the world after he retired from basketball. He was a freak of freaks. It's just impossible to put it into words and to put it into perspective how incredible an athlete he really was. So for me, it's not unbelievable to think that Wilt Chamberlain did bench 500 pounds. That reportedly happened on the set of Conan the Barbarian, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger that tells that story. So maybe Arnold is telling a big fish tale, but Wilt was very strong either way. Are there intra-session volume landmarks for powerlifters as well? Yes, but it does not apply equally because powerlifters have multiple ways to improve performance, and one of those ways is technique. And I mean, theoretically, like, you could just go through warm-ups, and if somebody's technique is bad enough or they're trying to implement a new cue, you don't even need weights that are stimulative to start implementing some of those cues. And then the other thing is, again, because you're not necessarily trying to stimulate hypertrophy, you could also just get increased neural adaptations. The volume landmarks are going to be very different for the different kinds of adaptations that powerlifters need to get better. So it doesn't apply equally, but it still applies. After your bicep injury, did you consider doing a leg prioritization phase? Dude, have you ever seen my physique? The last thing I ever need is leg prioritization or leg specialization. Unless they're going to come out with like a men's wellness division where like all the dudes can go up there wearing like a board shirt or like a sweatshirt, but you just show your legs. Because if they come out with that division, then I'm straight, man. I'm going to do real well in that. But otherwise, like, I'm kind of forced into a prioritization of the rest of my body anyway, because now I won't be able to train my whole right upper side. So I'm going to specialize in my left side and my legs because I have no other choice. Like, that volume is already removed, so I'll just have to distribute it to everything else anyway. What do you normally do during active rests? Is it worth it to do no lifting at all? Yeah, actually, that's pretty much the point. I guess if you wanted to do like some body weight push-ups and pull-ups and squats and stuff, maybe you could do that. But I usually try to time an active rest with a trip. So for example, I have one coming up to Cape Cod this coming weekend, and I won't do any lifting at all. I will be active, like taking the dogs on walks, going to the beach, maybe going on a hike, something like that. So, you know, you don't just become like a sluggy couch potato. But the whole point of an active rest from a lifting periodization standpoint is that it gives your joints and connective tissues basically a full reset that you don't even get when you deload. So that's why you do it. When using the Strive and Prime chest press and shoulder press machines, how should you distribute the load? So I get asked questions like this a lot, and it really just depends on the context of your whole training program. For example, if you train like Jordan Peters and those are the only two pressing machines that you use, you want to use a mix of both since you're not going to get any other work that's mid-range bias. If you're using a variety of machines and different flies and things that have different strength curves, then I would recommend using almost entirely the lengthened setting on Strive and Prime pieces because you're going to be able to cover everything else with every other type of machine and press. And Strive and Prime pieces are the only pieces where you get a really true, strong lengthened bias. But again, it totally depends on the full context. What is financial freedom and how can I obtain it? Well, my definition of financial freedom would be one of two things. One, it's either where you have passive income streams that are greater than your net monthly expenses. So you, without having to work, make more money than you spend, or where you have saved up enough money for retirement that you can afford your net expenses for the totality of your life. And so you never have to work again unless you want to. As far as how to get to that point, I mean, very generally speaking, of course, you're going to want to secure a high income by getting a really good job or starting your own business. Then you're going to save up enough money and invest it into things like real estate and the stock market and let compounding do its job. I mean, I can't get too much more specific than that, but I would say that the best path to wealth for the average person is through real estate and the stock market. So who is going to win between the Celtics and the Heat? So I love me some playoff Jimmy Butler. The man is on a mission. But in my opinion, the Heat are going to get absolutely railroaded by the Celtics. I wouldn't even be surprised if they got swept. And the reason why I say that is both of these teams are constructed similarly, but Boston does everything better and has more talent at every position. So instead of one superstar, you have two, and Jaylen Brown and Tatum instead of just Jimmy Butler. Instead of one or two shooters, it's a whole roster of shooters. The Heat have lost most of their depth due to injuries. Boston has the deepest bench in the entire NBA, and they both play a similar style of basketball with hard-nosed, focus on defense and hitting threes, and the Celtics are simply better at hitting threes by a huge margin. I think they're better defensively too, so I just don't see this series being close. Bad matchup for the Heat. From a hypertrophy perspective, is it problematic to stick to only 2 to 3 sources of protein for long periods of time? No, it's not. Listen, if you want to maximize health, that's not the same thing as maximizing hypertrophy. And if you want to maximize health, yes, try to maximize variety in every single type of food. In your meat, in your fruit, in your vegetables, blah, blah, blah. But there are really no elite bodybuilders that eat like 7 different kinds of protein. For one different kind of protein for each meal. They stick to the foods that digest well for them, that are convenient for them, that they like to eat, because that's what makes the process easier. And if you lose some small marginal health benefits due to the lack of variety, oh well, you know what? That's what free meals are for. You might eat chicken and salmon most days, but every once in a while you're going to go off plan and have a burger or a steak at a restaurant anyway. I don't think this is a big deal at all, and I personally don't worry about it. Neither should you. Does body weight not matter if you're getting bigger? So here's the problem with that. Technically, yes, it's true, right? You can lose fat and build muscle at the same time, but it's extremely unlikely. So how do you know that you're getting bigger? The only indicator that you could really have is you're getting way, way stronger, right? And the problem with that is that if you're doing new movements, you can make neurological adaptations that lead to really quick strength gains, and those aren't necessarily representative of new tissue being added. Second, like especially for naturals, but even for enhanced people, muscle gain is a slow process. So you're not going to notice muscle gains on a week-to-week basis usually. It's much slower than that. So one of the ways that you can ensure the actual hypertrophy is occurring is that when you're in a bulking phase, you want to see your body weight slowly moving up. Your average body weight should be moving up month over month. If it's not changing at all, you might just be getting stronger without adding any new tissue. And you don't want that. It's kind of a waste of your time. What job can you recommend for me to just get out there? I'm hesitant. Bro, I don't know if you realize this, but this is sort of a weird question to ask somebody. Like, I can't just recommend you a job. Like, it depends on what skills and abilities you have, right? I can't just say, go become a doctor. You need like a 6 to 8 year education to do that. So what I will say is that if you are a college student, one of the best jobs that you can get is probably serving and bartending. And that's because it's something that you can work your way up the ranks. And I know people that do bartending as an adult that literally make more dollars per hour than people with respected professional positions. And they have to work less to make the same amount of money. So that is something that to me is usually never a dead end, because you might have to start out in a fucking Applebee's or something, who knows, but you can work your way up towards higher end restaurants or in higher end bars. And a lot of those people make really good money while having a flexible schedule that allows you to keep working on your education goals as a student. Other than that, man, like, you're going to have to plan your own future. I don't know what life holds in store for you. Do you have experience taking intra-workout, and does it make a big difference like people say? I do have experience taking intra-workout, and with my current setup, it obviously makes a very big difference for me because I train first thing in the morning, and the intra-workout contains all sorts of ingredients that help ensure optimal hydration. I will say that when I was in the middle of a mass gaining phase, a bulking phase, a weight gaining phase, whatever you want to call it, and my workouts were under 2 hours, I can't really say that I noticed that much of anything. But again, like when you are in a mass gaining phase and food is hard to get down, this is an easy way to get down another 250 calories with zero effort. And again, it is going to ensure optimal hydration during the workout, which is always a factor for performance. Is this going to be a game changer? Absolutely not. I mean, and these can cost like, $50+ a month for a bottle. And that's more expensive than actual PEDs in some cases. So I'm just saying, but if it's something you can afford and it makes sense for your logistics, then yeah, I would recommend an intra-workout supplement to help your workouts. In a way, do you think that the fitness industry did more harm than body positivity for people's self-image? I don't think the fitness industry per se was responsible for hurting people's self-image with regarding to their own body. I think that falls squarely in the lap of social media in general. I mean, by now we all know how social media works. People basically only post their highlights. They post their best moments. They post photos in good lighting. They post photos with a pump.
They post edited photos. It's not like candid photos that show like a roll of back fat hanging over their, belt strap or something, right? So, yeah, and I mean, and there's celebrities all over there, all sorts of editing apps. And I do think there's quite a bit of evidence to suggest that social media has harmed people's self-image and their, general happiness because of all the comparison that happens. But it's weird to me to specifically place that blame on the fitness industry when fitness is just something that's popular on social media, along with a lot of other stuff like wealth displays and how pretty you are and how handsome you are. People kind of like show off everything on there, and all of it has a harmful effect on impressionable minds. Have you done extensive lengthened partial training before doing full range of motion training? No, and it's not something that I would personally even use, except for in the cases where like locking out a movement sort of just lets you rest and dissipate metabolites and makes the SFR worse. But I truly believe this. Equipment like Strive and Prime that allows for adjustable strength curves, even this RDL machine that I'm using, is the future, because I think lengthened partials will beat full range of motion training, but a machine with an awesome strength curve that drops off heavily in the short and is lengthened by in and of itself will beat lengthened partials. I mean, the research at this point pretty clearly shows that stretching in and of itself is hypertrophic, but I also think that it shows that when you have the most tension in the movement in the stretch, that actually results in more hypertrophy in and of itself as well. So the issue is that you don't just want to skip the short position, because that has impacts on regional hypertrophy. So lengthened partials are sort of a ghetto way to get around movements that have a terrible strength curve, because then you can focus on doing more weight in that stretched position. But if you have an adjustable strength curve machine, you can do both. If I was a gym owner, I would have like every single piece of Prime equipment in the gym. Every single one. I really do think it makes that big of a difference in your ability to consistently progress. Machines or movements that are more lengthened bias are easier to progress consistently. And again, there's just a mounting research showing that not only is the stretch in and of itself hypertrophic, but when you have the most tension in the stretch, that produces more hypertrophy. But we also know that training the short gives you better hypertrophy at different distances from the joint that's being trained. So you don't want to skip it. And if you don't have to do 3 different movements, one that's a stretch movement, one that has the most tension in the stretch, and another movement to train the short, if you can do all of that with one movement because it has an adjustable strength curve, I think set per set, you're getting the best return on your investment. You're getting the best bang for your buck. And that's why I would really focus on Prime and Strive machines and things like the Rogers squat, adjustable strength curves. Alrighty, friends, that is the end of the video. So you know what to do. If you like the video, please like the video. If you have questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a good day.